It is somewhere past midnight, years after the war is over, and the most decorated American soldier of the Second World War cannot sleep. The room is dark. A loaded pistol rests within arm's reach, the way it always does now. He lies still and listens to a war that ended long ago and never really stopped. The engines, the screaming, the snow turning red. The medals are in a drawer in another room. The cameras and the crowds are gone, and the man America called its greatest hero lies wide awake in the dark, fighting an enemy no one else can see. His name was Audie Murphy. The United States Army gave him every award for valor it had to give. The one thing it could never give him back was a single quiet night. This is the story of the war that followed Audie Murphy home, and it is all in the record. Before he was a hero, before the magazine covers, before Hollywood put his face on a movie screen, Audie Murphy was a hungry boy in Texas that almost nobody noticed. He was born in 1925 into a family of sharecroppers, one of 12 children, dirt poor in a way that is hard to imagine now. His father drifted away. His mother worked herself into an early grave, and she died while Audie was still a teenager. He left school in the 5th grade to pick cotton and to hunt, because if he missed, the family did not eat. Every shot had to count. That boy with a rifle in the Texas brush was teaching himself a skill the world had not yet asked him to use. Then came Pearl Harbor, and Audie Murphy, barely 17 years old, decided he was going to war. The problem was, nobody wanted him. He stood about 5'5" and weighed somewhere near 110 pounds. The Marines turned him down. The paratroopers turned him down. Too small, too young, too light. A boy, they said, not a soldier. His own sister had to help him alter the paperwork on his age, just to get him through the door. Finally, the Army took him, the one branch that would have him. They had no idea what they had just let in. Audie Murphy went to war in 1943, and the war did not break him the way everyone assumed it would. It sharpened him. He fought across North Africa, then into Sicily, then up the brutal spine of Italy and the killing ground of Anzio, then into southern France. Around him, men who were bigger, older, and stronger did not come back. Audie Murphy kept coming back. The skinny kid the Marines had laughed at turned out to have something no recruiter could measure on a scale. A cold, steady nerve under fire, and an instinct for staying alive when everything around him was dying. The marksman who once hunted to feed his family was now doing it to keep his men alive. He was becoming, quietly and steadily, one of the most effective combat soldiers in the entire United States Army. But the day that would define him, the day his name would be carved into history, was still coming. It was waiting for him in the frozen woods of eastern France, in the bitter cold of January 1945. On the 26th of January 1945, near the French village of Holtzwihr, Audie Murphy's company was dug in, freezing and badly outnumbered. Then the Germans came, infantry and tanks, rolling out of the tree line straight at his thinned-out men. Murphy did the math in an instant. He ordered his soldiers to fall back to cover. And then he stayed. What he did next sounds like something invented for a film, except that it happened. And it is in the official citation. An American tank destroyer near him had been hit and abandoned, burning, its crew gone. A machine that could explode at any second. Murphy climbed up onto it. He grabbed its heavy machine gun, and alone, on top of a burning vehicle, in full view of the enemy, he held off the advancing German infantry by himself. He was bleeding from a leg wound. He kept firing. When he got the artillery on the radio and they asked how close the Germans were to his position, he gave an answer soldiers would repeat for the rest of their lives. He told them to just hold the phone and he would let them talk to one of the Germans themselves. He held that position almost an hour, and he turned the attack back. For that day, Audie Murphy received the Medal of Honor, the highest award his country could give. He was 19 years old. When the war ended, Audie Murphy came home as the most decorated American combat soldier of the Second World War. 33 medals and decorations, American and foreign. Every single Combat Valor award the United States Army had to offer. His boyish face appeared on the cover of Life magazine as the most decorated soldier in the country. The actor James Cagney saw that cover, and he invited the young veteran out to Hollywood. And in one of the strangest turns in American history, the war hero became a movie star. In 1955, Audie Murphy starred in a film called To Hell and Back, based on his own autobiography, playing the role of himself. For nearly 20 years, it remained the biggest hit the studio had ever made. To the world, Audie Murphy had everything: the medals, the fame, the face on the poster, the American dream handed to a poor Texas boy who once couldn't afford to miss a shot. But to the man himself, something was very wrong, and almost no one knew. The cameras saw a hero. They did not see the nights. Audie Murphy could not sleep, and when he did, the nightmares came. The same war, over and over, refusing to end. He kept a loaded pistol close, even at home, even in a peace. He could not sit with his back to a door. A sudden noise could send him somewhere dark in an instant. The marriage strained under the weight of a man who had brought the battlefield home inside his own head. Today, we have a name for it. We call it post-traumatic stress. In Audie Murphy's time, they barely had words for it at all. They called it shell shock, or battle fatigue, or worse, they called it weakness. And here was the cruelest part. This was supposed to be the strongest man in America, the hero, the face of courage itself. How could he admit that he lay awake at night, afraid? To the public, Audie Murphy was the bravest man in the country. In private, the bravest man in the country was afraid to fall asleep. And the war inside him was about to push him to the edge of something he could not control. To survive the sleepless nights, Audie Murphy was prescribed sleeping pills. And in time, the pills became their own enemy. He realized he had grown dependent on them, so that the thing meant to save his nights was taking over his days. So he did something that took a different kind of courage than any battlefield ever asked of him. He locked himself away, alone, in a room, for days. He refused to hide the wound. He used the one thing he had, his fame, to speak openly about what combat does to the human mind. He called on his government to study it, to take it seriously, to care for the men who came home carrying a war inside them. At a time when soldiers were told to be silent and just get over it, the most famous soldier in America stood up and said the silence was killing them. He had spent his teenage years fighting an enemy in uniform. He spent his last years fighting for men who would never know his name, for the soldier lying awake in the dark, just like he was. On the 28th of May, 1971, Audie Murphy boarded a small private plane. The weather was poor. Somewhere over the mountains of Virginia, in low cloud and rain, the aircraft went down. The man who had survived the deadliest war in human history was killed in an accident in peacetime. He was 45 years old. They buried him at Arlington National Cemetery. His grave became one of the most visited in the entire cemetery. A Medal of Honor recipient is entitled to have the lettering on his headstone finished in gold. Audie Murphy asked for none of it. His stone is plain, the simple government-issue marker given to any ordinary soldier. The most decorated soldier in American history chose to lie among them as just another man who served. History remembers Audie Murphy for the medals. The burning tank destroyer. The boy who held off an army alone. And he was all of that. But the truest part of his story is the part the cameras never filmed. To the world, he was the hero who won every award his country had. To himself, he was a man who never got to put the war down. America gave him everything, the fame, the medals, the movie. It never gave him a single peaceful night. He could have hidden that. He could have let the legend stand and suffered in silence like he was supposed to. Instead, he told the truth about the cost, so that the men who came after him might be believed. The medals get remembered. The men behind them carry something no one sees. Audie Murphy carried his all the way to a plain stone at Arlington. If this story stayed with you, if you believe the price these men paid should never be forgotten, drop a single word in the comments, remembered, and subscribe to the Forgotten Front, because the medals get remembered, but the men behind them get forgotten. Unless we keep telling the truth. We'll see you next time.